to inform your analysis about what's happening. Can you share with us anything you might not have mentioned about your trip to Iran that you would like to, especially in regards to the people you met?
Well, one thing I haven't mentioned is you see all this propaganda now about how Iran forces women to wear the hijab and it's so oppressive, and that's why we have to basically kill all those women and bomb them. This was a point made by a Iranian expat panelist on The View today. It's like, you know, low IQ propaganda mechanism that's probably more effective than every one episode of that is more effective in brainwashing the public than everything I've done for my whole life to try to wake them up. But you don't see the hijab being enforced in Iranian cities. You just don't see it. Now, it's true, women have to be ready to put it on, but you'll see women everywhere just not wearing hijab. At night, you can actually see women going out in like tank tops into hotels with their hair out, not even, with a scarf ready. And the state has basically, it seems like the state has decided not to enforce it in order to reduce the tension between the secular public and the religious public. And it's still an issue, but it's become less of an issue. And I filmed like a walking tour of a really beautiful uh, uh, village or town just north of Tehran at the base of Mount Tochal called Darban. It's on Twitter. I can have Amar share it with you, and you'll just see me walking through this small street in a village or this narrow street in a village, and everyone's out enjoying their Friday night or Saturday night, and very few of the women are even wearing hijab there. Like they're in the minority. So this is something I think people don't understand in the US. Anyone watching this, just go on YouTube when this is over and type in the search bar walking tour Tehran. And there are tons of videos from inside shopping malls and streets in Tehran, and you'll see what it really looks like or looked like before this war. And so my takeaway from that was that if the United States had just left Iran alone, a process of reform would take place naturally. Liberalization was taking place naturally, but within the context and the parameters of the Islamic Republic, which prioritizes independence from collective Western dictates and uh, freedom also from the IMF. Iran doesn't have debt like other countries. And Islam. They are going to have a clerical leadership, but there was a process of liberalization that's been taking place somewhat quietly, but it's happening. And this war, I think, threatens to reverse that.
The last question I'll ask before giving you the floor for closing remarks, Max, is, and also before that, I just want to say also thank you everyone so much for joining us, and also my apologies for not being able to get to every question. Max, with the situation escalating between Iran and Israel, where does that leave Gaza right now? What's the situation like in Gaza currently?
I wanted to make one other point on the last question. I also got to engage with the Jewish community in Iran, and it needs it needs to be understood, and there needs to be a spotlight on the Jewish community in Iran to counter Netanyahu's propaganda about how Iran is anti-Semitic and wants to commit another Holocaust. Because the Jewish community in Iran is the second largest Jewish community in the region. There are 10,000 of them, and they are protected officially under the Constitution of the Islamic Republic. They live in safety. They are not freaking out about anti-Semitism like American Jews are, or American Jews morally depraved institutional leadership. Uh, and their official leadership is anti-Zionist and draws a sharp distinction between Zionism and Judaism because it's Zionism that places them in the crosshairs. and makes them an object of suspicion, and they recognize that. And they're practicing Judaism in a very uh, traditional way, in an indigenous way. One of my last one of my last days there, I went 40 minutes outside Isfahan to a ninth century Jewish cemetery and saw Jews pay respect and pray for their relatives who are buried there because it's a still active ninth century Jewish cemetery, which is located next to a shrine for Serat Bat Asher, who was said to have been at this location with her grandfather, Jacob, Jacob from the Bible, as they waited for Joseph to arrive from exile. And that Judaism is still alive in Iran. This is also something Zionism seeks to snuff out. So I think that needs to be recognized. And Zionism is snuffing out the entire reputation of Judaism and turning the symbols that I saw on those graves there, symbol of my faith community, they're turning it into a swastika. And so one way to resist it is to recognize that there are these other communities out there that are operating completely outside the control of Zionism. And one of them is in Iran. Gaza is being taken off the internet, the radar of the media, but the media was basically ignoring it anyway at one of its most horrific stages. At the same time, what Iran is doing is relieving pressure on the resistance in Gaza, and you can see the resistance factions are mounting some pretty serious operations after almost 2 years of war. And Israeli soldiers are constantly being medevaced out of Gaza or taken out in coffins day after day as Israel has to reallocate resources. Israel's reservist corps are exhausted. A lot of men are not showing up. And the part of the population that participates in the military uh, is psychologically exhausted. But the one of the biggest scandals of our time is not getting the attention it deserves right now, and it's the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, which is being used is funded by Israeli intelligence and the Israeli Defense Ministry, fronted by American officials, including Trump loyalists, and they're hiring mercenaries through firms like Safe Reach Solutions, which is actually run by a former CIA operative named Philip Riley, who doesn't live that far from me in the DC area. And these figures are true villains, true criminals, and they're not getting the negative attention they deserve. What they're doing is taking a starving population and drawing them to these poorly run, hyper-militarized, dystopian concentration camp-like aid distribution hubs, and then they're being shot by the Israeli military. It's like a shooting gallery. Yesterday, 56 people were killed trying to get aid at one of the aid distribution hubs. This is something we've really never seen before, where aid is being weaponized to the point where it's killing hundreds of people a week. And so the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, there should be efforts to prosecute their directors. And when you look at who actually founded this, these were there were some heavyweight humanitarian aid hucksters involved, including the former CEO of Jose Andres' World Central Kitchen, Nate Mook, was his name was on the founding documents. He pulled out because he saw what was coming, but these figures haven't gotten any scrutiny. Um, where's the end game for Gaza? Where is this going? If Iran is able to actually turn the screws on Israel, I don't know if that's possible. They may be able to force a ceasefire. And right now, I think they're the only force on the planet capable of doing it because there's no will from the US administration. There's no will from Europe, the EU. They're just allowing the Holocaust of our time to take place right in front of our eyes. And, it's that Holocaust regime in Tel Aviv that Donald Trump now refers to as we. And Senator Ted Cruz in an interview with Tucker Carlson, where he was just intellectually dismantled, referred to them as we. That's where we're at with our leadership. And I'm not, I mean, I think everyone watching this is just sort of overcome with outrage, but we can't let it sap our energy.